Hello, my name is Joyce, and today I'm going to be presenting about BPA. Before this project, I had one question. What exactly is BPA? I've heard of it, I know it's bad, but that's all I knew. And I think other people will wonder about the same thing. So today, I'm going to be uncovering everything you need to know about BPA. BPA, also known as bisphenol A, is composed of 15 carbons, 16 hydrogen, and 2 oxygen. It was originally discovered as artificial estrogen, but is currently used to make very strong plastics. BPA causes many health problems, mostly because it's an endocrine disruptor. It imitates the body's hormones and interferes with the production and secretion of hormones in the human body. Here's some problems caused by BPA intake. Infertility and other reproductive disorders. Chronic heart disease. Type 2 diabetes because BPA intake builds a resistance to insulin, which can influence your weight. Slower brain development. This affects social behavior and anxiety. Breast and prostate cancer. BPA interferes with the effectiveness of chemotherapy in breast cancer treatment. Some products that you can find BPA in are items packaged in plastic containers, baby bottles, canned foods, toiletries, feminine hygiene products, thermal printer receipts, household electronics, and much more. I'm going to briefly go over the history of BPA. In 1891, Russian chemist Alexander Dianin first synthesized BPA in a laboratory. Several years later, British chemist Charles Edward Dodds recognized BPA as an artificial estrogen. The estrogen imposter would have been used as a pharmaceutical hormone, but a more potent synthetic estrogen called DES was invented, precluding the use of BPA. In what should have been a warning signal to the potential toxicity of BPA, DES was taken off the market when it was linked to reproductive cancers in babies born to mothers taking the chemical. In the 1950s, polycarbonate resin was invented, and BPA began to appear in PC consumer products throughout the world. In the 1960s, the FDA approved the use of BPA in consumer products like PC water bottles, baby bottles, food containers, and epoxy linings for metal-based foods and beverage cans. In 1992, Dr. David Feldman discovered that BPA migrated from his PC test tubes to a test specimen and appeared to be mimicking estrogen. He became the first researcher to identify and call attention to the possible impact of low levels of PC component BPA on human health. Since then, there have been several lawsuits and petitions to ban BPA from all products, but the FDA ultimately decides not to ban BPA from food and beverage packaging in 2012. Personally, I believe that a scientist, especially a Christian one, has an obligation to predict the environmental and physical consequences of their discoveries before they release it out to the public. They should be held accountable unless they couldn't figure out the negative consequences because of the lack of technology, or if it only shows up over the course of hundreds of years. I think it's important to be willing to take responsibility. The mindset is the most important part. Because if you're going to be awarded for the accomplishments, you should also be willing to be criticized and take responsibility of your failures. And I believe that these 3 Bible verses summarize the scientist's obligation really well. 2 Corinthians 5:10. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, whether good or evil. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. James 4:17. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is a sin. As the Bible verses say, Christians should take responsibility for their actions. We need to be righteous in the sight of God, and to be righteous, we need to take responsibility. To conclude, I want you to remember 2 things from our presentation. Number 1, BPA makes strong plastics, but it causes long-lasting health problems. And number 2, I believe that scientists should be willing to take responsibility of their findings, even the negative consequences. And when I say scientists, I mean anyone who is studying science, and that includes students too. And I really hope you'll remember that as you continue in the field of science. Thank you for listening to my presentation.